welcome to another Dave Does video, and today we are doing a album review and we're checking out Pink Floyd Wish You Were Here. So we put, or I say, well, I keep saying we, I say I, put up on the community board a series of albums, including things like Queensryche, Operation Mindcrime and a load of others, and asked you which of these albums you wanted me to go and check out and do a review on. And you guys picked the Pink Floyd Wish You Were Here, and so I was happy to go and do it. So I kind of went into this review with two mindsets. There was the mindset of, do you know what? I've done a few Pink Floyd reactions and I haven't really got into them. Things like Comfortably Numb. But I went in this with a positive mindset of this is going to be a good opportunity. This is going to give me a chance because I'm going to have to sit here and listen to an album multiple times back to back without skipping, without just doing a one-off listen. So I'm going to attempt to completely get myself into this Pink Floyd, because the Pink Floyd fans obviously have sort of said I've not given them enough opportunities, or I didn't get it, etc. So I thought this would be a good opportunity. Then in the negative, in the opposite mindset, when my brain was going, was like, oh my god, I'm going to have to sit here for an album of Pink Floyd. Yeah, I know, it's kind of split personalities here, so I was kind of like, yeah, there was the apprehension part of it as well, but I was like, yep, we're going to do it. And the key thing to remember between a reaction and a review is the reaction is literally a single listen. You never heard the song before. Bam, you get one listen of the 4 minutes, or in case of Pink Floyd's 10-15 minute song. And then you've got to give your thoughts and feelings on it. Whereas with the review, I listened to the album a minimum of 5 times all the way through from start to finish. And that's a proper listen through. And I listened to it in different environments as well. So I've listened to it in the car, listened to it on headphones while working. I've sat here in the studio room and just listened to it a couple of times, and just before doing this video I've listened to it one more time, and that's where I make more notes, and my notes are up to date. But it gives me a little bit more time to absorb the song, take it on board, multiple songs, do a little bit more research where I can. I don't want to just go loads of research, but I'll do as much research as I think is needed to kind of give me some context as well about the album. But yeah, let's get to this. So we're doing Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here, which was released in 1975. It was recorded over numerous sessions throughout that year at the Abbey Road Studios in London. Been to those studios, very cool. I used to work around the corner from them. The album itself covers elements or criticizes elements of the music industry or music business, and of course it covers areas of topic of alienation, and also there's a tribute to Syd Barrett, who's a founding member who left the band many years earlier due to deterioration of mental health issues. There's a lot more information about that sort of thing in the context if you want to find it on the internet, so go and have a check that out. So what I found interesting about this one was when the album was released, it was critically had mixed reviews. So some people liked it, some people didn't like it, but it has generally, the appreciation of this album has improved through the years, and I always find that a little bit interesting as to why that happens. So now it's rated as one of the greatest of all times, and I question whether or not that is due to genuine musical appreciation, or is that a peer pressure thing where people keep saying something is the greatest of all time and they feel they have to appreciate it for it. So we'll cover that over a little bit, because I find that interesting. There's some Zeppelin albums, and people say that Metallica's greatest album is the Black Album or Master of Puppets, and I think it's all very subjective, as is many things, but especially when doing the amount of reaction channels or videos I do, you tend to find that everyone kind of says their band or this song is the greatest song ever, and it's very subjective. It's one of those things you can't really quantify. But the album itself has sold more, in excess of 13 million copies. So that is a pretty good result, so it's obviously doing well. But then think about how many people live on this planet. 13 million is a drop in the ocean, but they've done excessively well, so it is obviously selling well. But let's cover a little bit more about the actual songs. So it's only 5 songs, which I was really surprised when I first got the album. I was like, well, where's the rest of it? Is this like the demo version where's the actual album, which has the full track listing? So I'm expecting like the minimum of 8, 9, 10 songs. So when I then got 5 songs, I thought, okay, they're going to be quite long. There's going to be some 20-30 minute songs on there, and then I was like, okay, 12-13 minutes. This is actually quite a short album. There's not a huge amount of context in it. It's about what, I think we're talking about just shy of about 40, it's about 39 minutes, 40 minutes songs in total. It's not a lot. But what we've got first is Shine On You Crazy Diamonds Part 1 to 5. And it's interesting because I didn't notice the bit where it said Part 1 to 5 at the end of it. So kind of my first thoughts were, I'll read it as I read my notes. So, opening with an atmospheric synth, it is very delicate and emotional in its construct. So I found it very kind of, it was trying to eke out some emotions with you. It took 4 minutes of what appears to be an intro, but this is where I went, but probably more appears to be a part one of a story. Now I realise part 1 to 5. However, it's harder to break up the parts 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, but it was clear that there was a part 1. But I did find it was kind of 4 minutes. There wasn't a huge amount in that first 4 minutes. At 4 minutes 40, we finally kick in with a nice kind of swing groove. That's where the drums kind of kicked in. It's bluesy, kind of Clapton-esque. And I know people will say, well, yeah, actually Clapton borrowed from them, or because they're all kind of bands that were around that same sort of era. So, but I'm using the word Clapton-esque because it's kind of where the style I've heard his sort of style of playing more than I've heard Pink Floyd, so that's my kind of reminiscence or my thought of. There was also some of the singing parts there and the chord structures was reminiscence of George Harrison's "While My Guitar Gently Weeps" from 1968, but with better orchestration. So it's a more full orchestration and a little bit more groove, sort of swing groove versus the more up-tempo, clean style of "While My Guitar Gently Weeps." So I have to keep looking down because that's where my notes are. 8:45. We still we don't get. It's 8 minutes and 45 till we first get our first look at vocal lines. That's a bold move to sit there and wait for 8 minutes and 45 seconds before the first song of your album to not bring vocals in is a huge statement to try and do in an album, to not do that, because you've got a big chance in that first 8 minutes that someone's going to switch off. And I normally would have. It was only because I was doing the reaction or the review of it that I obviously sat through this. It's got a lovely build and emotional content musically. It feels kind of like the whole song feels like a bit like a jam, just like sitting in a room jam, but it's been a well-structured jam. So they knew where they wanted to move on, and they were just embellishing the jam as they went along. And then I liked how at the end of it had an interesting upchange in tempo, becoming more positive but somber at the same time. So the tempo kind of gives you a more positive vibe, but the keys or the chord structures in there, it's kind of very somber, very sort of almost sinister. It kind of made me think of like what they do when you get like one of these graphic novel movies where they have like a crime novel, and at the end of the crime novel the detective's going off in the sunset, but there's been a murder at the same sort of time, or he survived and but he's lost the love of his life. So it's positive that he survived, but he's lost the love of his life, so it's negative at the same time, so it's somber. That's kind of what it meant. It felt positive in a happy point, but felt sad at the same time. So I thought that was quite interesting. We then move on, Welcome to the Machine, which is probably my favourite song on the album, just because I felt I liked the industrialisation, the intensity of it. It's probably not the most accessible song on the album, probably one of the other ones is, but I liked Welcome to the Machine from a kind of grittiness, I suppose, for me. So it starts with a kind of the thrum of machine cycling noises, but basically done by the synths on the album, growing with intensity, and then the chill of the acoustic guitars kind of comes in, takes over. At a minute in, we have an almost intense, desperate vocal style. But it hooks you instantly with strong dynamics through additional samples and synth effects. So we've got a real kind of intense vocals and little things going on. So it's a real with the idea of the machine. It's a real kind of intensity of what they've done with their musical style. 3 minutes in, we move to a dramatic 1 minute instrumental section, which is really nice. Breaks it up again. Back to 4 minutes, we move back into the story with more intense vocals that drag you along for the ride. And then we have 2.5 minutes of outro of prog synth jam, followed by what kind of sounded like a bit like of an air raid siren cycling up and down, or an engine cycling up and down, and then kind of crowd noises of people chatting away, which is kind of weird. The outro of that kind of made me go, that was a bit of an odd outro. But hey, it's Pink Floyd, and what was I expecting? We now have next on the album was Have a Cigar, which I had heard before. Not really listened to it fully, but I knew of it. Having my dad was a bit of a Pink Floyd fan, so I'd heard this one. This has got Roy Harper, a friend of the band, who sang on it. Almost kind of kicks in with a country blues groove. One of the most, probably I say one of the most, there's only 5 songs in the album, but probably one of the most accessible in the sense of easily to access tracks on the album. There's almost something a little bit sort of dirty, gritty in style in how how the song's put together. It's interesting with the swelling. It's almost Bob Dylan-esque at points in the way he tries to sing, but it makes it very memorable. It's kind of very loose at points, almost a free-form jam. It's got some lovely lead lines, balanced instrumentation. God, I can't speak. Across the whole track. I like how the drum just sits there. It holds the backbeat, holds the groove, but it doesn't try and force the pace. It kind of just sits there and just kind of stops it from slowing down completely, but just whereas it's not trying to be really, really on it on those like the quantized beats. 3 minutes 20, we hit a lovely bluesy solo, accented with a double time hi-hats, and that stood out for me because the rest of the track's kind of just single time groove counted hi-hats, and then he's got this kind of thing going on over the solo, which I actually really liked how that was just a simple thing like that added to the solo and just changed up the feel of the track. We move on to Wish You Were Here, which was the song I had heard before. Kind of a bit of a plod along song for me, but it's an interesting track in the sense it starts with a kind of a crackle radio sample effect with a bit of a TV monologue, moving into a beautiful simple strummed guitar lead, and then it has a kind of lovely clean, more present guitar lead over the top of that harmony line. 1 minute 30 we get the meat of the track, which is the vocal. When the vocals kick in, it feels full of emotion, it's very accessible. It feels like a slowed down version at points of Rod Stewart's Handbags and Glad Rags at points, because when you listen to as many songs as I have to, not have to, but I want to, with reactions plus daily listening to probably about 6-7 hours worth of music every day, you kind of always get reference points in your head where you go, oh, that sounds a little bit like that sounds a bit like that, and there were points in there that kind of made me go and think, oh, I've heard that before, so I kind of quickly went and checked Handbags and Glad Rags by Rod Stewart, and although Handbags and Glad Rags is much faster, there were some points where you can kind of feel the vibe of it. But it was definitely, there's something there, but it just feels like a slowed down version of that, but in style, but not in the actual content. It's lovely chilled, it's got a bluesy solo in there, hooky chorus, very sing-along, and as I said, very accessible. And then we move to the final track, which is Shine On You Crazy Diamonds, part 6 to 9. I liked the intro with the back and forth pick guitars, the ding 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 ding, so it's the up down picking rather than down down picking, and this sort of synth line, this kind of gave it this kind of 80s crime drama intro vibe, which kind of I thought was cool. Moves into a kind of a swing groove that gets you kind of head nodding. 5 minutes in, we get vocals to anchor the track and give us an instrument. A bit of an instrumental break, because obviously there's 5 minutes in we've had a full-on instrumental. It's got a lovely vocal harmonies by the guys, and it's a nice way, I guess, to bookend the start and end of the album with basically the Shine On You Crazy Diamond, 9 parts of it, but very similar, so small sections. It's obviously got so much similarities to the first part of the track on the album, which is fine to do that, but I guess it's on a 5-track album, which means you've only got, effectively, I look at it and go, if you could easily just put those two Shine On You Crazy Diamonds parts 1 to 9 all in a long line, that's one song, so you've really only got 4 songs on an album, which makes me feel, if I was buying this outright back then, I'd feel a bit shortchanged. You get used to 9-10 albums, although you could probably say that if, okay, let's say it's 4 songs, on most albums you're going to get 4 great songs, and you're probably going to get a bit of album filler, which are songs that just don't really stand out. So you could say, if you're a big Pink Floyd fan, you go, yeah, but you've got 4 or 5, whatever songs you want to, however you want to count it, great songs on here. And I get why Shine On You Crazy Diamond has been split into 2 parts. Otherwise, you're going to have 26 minutes long's worth of instrumentation, which has probably got about 6 minutes worth of vocals on it. So you got about 20 minutes of pure instrumentation. That's a lot of instrumentation, and hence why they probably broke it into 2 sets. But what do I think? So from a summary point of view, did I like it? Didn't like it? Well, that's subjective. I like it from a musician's point of view. I like how it's been written and put together. As I said, I do feel a little shortchanged from the point of how much context is on that album. I feel overall it depends on where I am and the environment as to whether I would listen to the album. Each track is good, and on its own, the album itself is a great collection of stories and emotion. I wouldn't listen to the album start to finish again. I find the pace is too drawn out. I find it's just too slow an album for me to just listen to. But a track every so often is fine with me. It's a good approach, I think, to the album. I think if you took a single song off of there and just listened to that every so often, intersperse that with other songs, I think that's a really good way for me personally. I would listen to the album. The songs themselves are the sort of things I would listen to whilst doing other things. I.e., like if I was working, doing my invoicing, doing paperwork and stuff in the evening, I would have them on in the background. Maybe if I was just sitting in the garden, just chilling out in the sunshine, again, I'd have that sort of stuff on. It's just probably not something if I was driving a car where I'm trying to almost keep focus on the road, but also slightly distract my brain while you're kind of doing these long car drives, etc. I'd probably have something a bit more rocky, something with like 3-4 minute songs to kind of keeping your mind alert. I did listen to this when doing a long drive, this album back from start to finish, and I got to the job feeling really depressed. I honestly did. I sat there and went, I've just driven down like the last sort of 40 minutes or whatever from one place to the other, and I thought I just feel drained. So probably not depressed, but drained. It didn't feel like it hadn't got a blood pump. It hadn't got it because it was just a very slow album. And that's my main thing for the album. It just feels slow, and that's kind of a little bit what I was expecting. But I've always said I've always got a massive respect for the guys in Pink Floyd. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Pink Floyd are not going to be my cup of tea, but I do like the songs on the album. I think they've been well written, but just not something I would listen to on a day-to-day basis. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Now, if you like this video, please do subscribe, click the bell icon, like, share, leave the comments down below, get involved with the challenges. That, of course, is how Dave does it.